Okay, that is the WTAMU Band Camp High School audition for year B and obviously the trumpet. Okay, so we're going to talk our way through each section of this material, the theme, and then there are 3 variations, and we'll talk about each one separately. So the theme, one of the things that you want to try to get accomplished here is the smoothness of the theme. There's nice long slurs here, so everything needs to be really smooth and lyrical. And probably one of the first things you want to do, and I'm just going to pull my music around this way, is mark your music. This is super important. I've got all my measures numbered, and oh my goodness, it looks like we're backwards here. Anyway, and mark your critical notes, mark the places where you're going to breathe. Okay, so that's really important. Do all that ahead of time, all right? But at the beginning, we're going to start with a nice smooth air, smooth everything, okay? You can do all that on one breath. I think that's what I would do. If you need a breath, probably, well, you could do it a couple different ways. You could take a breath at the end of measure 2, and then finish the rest of it through measure 8 on a breath. You could take a breath at the end of measure 4 and do 4-bar phrases right there. And either one of those I think would be fine. The reason I don't want to take a breath at the end of measure 4 is because of the way the crescendo is happening and the fact that it seems to kind of just want to push into measure 5. So, there's lots of different ways to interpret this theme, and either any of those would probably be okay. Just to make sure that you do some dynamics. You've got a hairpin, crescendo, decrescendo, measure 1 and 2, and then a crescendo in measure 4, and then a decrescendo in measure 7. So dynamics are super important. And then if you know how to do vibrato, if you're working on vibrato, put in some vibrato on the dotted quarters and the dotted half notes as well. Okay, variation 1. Variation 1, we start to get into some different types of articulation and also some technique. All right, the etude itself is progressive, so it's going to get a little tougher as you go along. Okay, so we start off with the little scale passage here. We're in the key of D, so the key of G. Sorry, and the key of G has 1 sharp, F sharp, and so we want to think in that scale. Here we go. It's the key of G starting on D. That's where I messed up. So if you can play your G scale, then these passages are going to be super easy for you. Always be thinking about the scales that are in this etude here. Coming up in measure 11, we have an accidental in that measure, and we go to F natural. So the F natural, you can start thinking of this little passage as the key of C. And then there's another accidental, all right? That C sharp is a leading tone back into the key of D, all right? So there's our tonic note. And then here's another little passage. In a measure 13, we're going to think in the key of B flat. That's a B flat scale, okay? And make sure you get that E flat. And make sure you play that measure soft. It's marked piano, okay? That's a really nice place to show the dynamic contrasts. And then at 15, we go right back to the key of G. Okay, so just thinking about the different scales and how they sound. Okay, there's some moments when it kind of sounds like we're in a different key, and some accidentals that happen. So anyway, it's a neat little variation. Okay, all right. In terms of articulations, the staccato dots, if you get the tempo up to where it's suggested that you play at 60 beats or faster, I wouldn't go much faster, but the articulation in terms of how short you want to play those shouldn't be too difficult to accomplish if you just try to play it clean. Don't try to overdo the staccatos. The speed of the 16th notes should take care of the shortness of the note. So that's how I would approach the staccato notes. All right, D D D D D. Okay, think about how you want to vocalize those, the type of articulation you would want to use. Okay. All right. So variation 2, kind of more the same. We've got the slurs and staccato articulations that go in and out. So again, you want to be thinking about pushing air forward and with a nice smooth forward motion of your airstream. Okay, so in this variation, we're going to start getting up a little bit higher in the range. It goes up to a high A above the staff, so that's good. And we've got some accidentals, A sharp, okay, same thing as B flat, C sharps, right? And again, don't try to overdo the staccatos. Just play with a nice, clean articulation. The shortness will take care of itself. One thing you might have noticed in measure 17 is I actually follow the phrase a little bit, and I actually do this as I perform the whole thing. There are places where a particular dynamic may not be exactly written to either get softer or louder, but what I'm doing is I'm just following the phrase. So as I come down, I might come down a little bit in volume, and as I go up, I might come back up a little bit in volume. Okay, and that's just following the natural phrase of the music. Okay, so I'm going to come down a little bit at measure 17, and it's going to help bring out the crescendo that's in measure 18. Sorry about the bells. We're not at school, but we still have to have our bells going. So anyway, so listen to that. So 17 going into 18, I'm going to come down just a little bit, and then that way I have somewhere to build on the crescendo going into 19. And then again, I'm going to come down, and then I'm going to go back up. And there's a nice big crescendo right there going into measure 21. All right. And there's a decrescendo right there at measure 22. So lots of dynamics that you can do, and they're going to show off your ability. They're going to show off your playing. This is about a little over a minute, maybe about a minute and 5-6 seconds if you play it at 60 beats per minute. And so in that really short amount of time, you have to show off and communicate all the things that you can do as a player. So try to do as much as you can with dynamics and playing with correct articulations. And while we're talking about articulations, when you're learning this etude from the beginning, make sure that you learn the articulations correctly. Don't try to go back and learn them or fix them after you've learned the notes and the rhythms. Learn the articulations from the very beginning. It will save so much time. Okay, so let's talk about this grace note here in measure 22. Okay, now how are we going to practice that? Well, let's start with it going, let's go nice and slow. Okay, I would start as slow as you need to, all right? Turn the eighth notes into the beat, into the quarter note. Dee, da, dee, ya. Okay? The grace notes have to fit in between the D and the C, and the C has to come on the up. If you're going down, press up, okay? So that's important, all right, that the timing of the grace notes is there, all right? And so just start slow and work your way up. And then as you're practicing that, I like to have a note to aim for. So I'm going to aim for the next note. Okay, I've got the note, I've got the articulations. Now I'm going to put the dynamics in. Okay, then I'm going to put it back together at the beginning of 22. Okay, like that. All right. So again, start with just that one little spot, and then expand out. Add your dynamics in. You're good to go. Okay. All right. We've got a couple of dotted quarter notes there at the end of that variation. Put some vibrato on those notes. Those are our long notes. All right. So anything that's considered a long note, put some vibrato on that. It'll make your performance better. Okay, so variation 3, we get a little bit more technical. All right, let's look at the first 4 measures here. Now, those first 2 bars, there's not a big difference written in terms of dynamics, but again, I'm going to exaggerate the dynamics. I think it's important to really communicate that you're doing the dynamics. A lot of times, we think that we're doing the dynamics, but what's being projected, what's being communicated out with the instrument, it doesn't always come across. So I like to talk about exaggerating dynamics. So I'm gonna come down even probably more than what's written, so that the crescendo in measure 26 sounds like it's being executed. All right. Now let's look at measure 27 for a second. You're going to need to practice this slow. Okay, so I'm going to take that chunk at measure 27 plus 1 note, the first note of 28, and I'm going to practice it slow. Okay, and there's a couple different ways you could do this. One thing I think is important to recognize is the fact that there's a note that changes, and then there's a note that stays the same all the way through the measure. So the first, all the odd number notes, first, third, fifth, and so on, they're gonna change. All right, they're gonna change notes. Okay, all those notes are gonna change, and then the notes that are in between, that B natural is gonna stay the same. So. Okay, so as I practice it slow, go ahead and do the articulation. There are accents on the notes that change. So bring those notes out, okay? Play them stronger. Okay, here's another little thing you can do. Okay, I'm playing the notes that change, I'm playing them longer, okay? And I'm doing them in a particular time. D, 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 D. Anything that you practice, you always want to think of it in some sort of have some sort of timing to it, okay? Timing is really important, all right? You can also switch that and make the B that stays the same, the static note, make that the long note. Okay, do that a few times, all right? And these little things that I'm showing you, you'll want to do them several times. And you'll want to start slow and increase your tempos, okay? But that's a really good exercise to do. And every time I practice it slow like that, I feel more confident with it. So be sure that you practice it. All right, now let's jump over here to measure 29 because it's a similar lick as in 27. But you have a little bit more of extreme range that you have to deal with and a bigger interval jump. Okay, now we go up to a high B, so we've got an octave skip, okay? You can do the exact same exercise here. Okay, we can do that a few times. Again, speed it up, start slow and speed it up. You can do the other note slow. Okay, so just doing little things like that. If the high note is giving you trouble, you may want to try using some buzzing. Okay, I like to buzz. I think that's a good little tool that you can do. You can also practice holding that note, okay? One of the things I think is important in brass playing is figuring out what our tolerances are, what our ranges are, okay? And when I say range, it's not only we're talking about just like how high or low you can play, but you know, like if I need to hold a high note for this long, if I can hold it for this long, right, then I know that I can hold it for that long. So I'll practice holding that high note and hold it for a long time, and then that gives me confidence to know that I can do this. Right? So it's kind of like lifting weights. You know, if I know I can lift, you know, if I can max out, 200 pounds, then I know I can do a whole bunch of 100 pounds, you know, or something like that. You know, whatever, however the analogy works for you. Okay, but that's the analogy that I think of is if I can hold a high note for a long time, then now I can hold it for a short time. So you want to gradually build yourself up to that, okay? Practice slow and then speed up. And then you've got a little chromatic here. All right, now let's talk about the grace notes right there in measure 30, all right? So we want to make sure that the primary note, which is E natural on beat 2, still lands right on 1. Da, digga, digga, da. Okay, so the 4 grace notes are going to happen on the li of 1. 1 la, li, 1 la, li ta ta 1, or li ta ta 2, sorry. 1, li ta ta 2, 1, li ta ta 2, li 1. 1, li ta ta 2, li 1. So if you're doing your foot tap, those grace notes are going to hit right on the upbeat. Down, press, up. Down, press, digga, digga, da, da, da. Okay? So again, we just practice it slow. Start with just the grace notes and the primary. and gradually speed up. Okay, then I'm going to put it in context with the measure. Did you hear the little pulse that I did? Do a couple little pulses on the first two eighth note beats of the dotted quarter note. Tss, da ba da ba da. Tss, da ba da ba da. All right, and that'll help you with your timing. All right, as well as tapping your foot. All right, then take the pulses out. Okay, so hopefully when you take the pulses out, you'll have your timing set and everything will be good to go. Okay, so remember the 16th note, grace notes happen on the law of one. Okay? Okay, I missed that high B, but you get the idea. All right, then measure 31 to the end. You've got a little chromatic thing here. And again, you've got an opportunity to really show off your dynamics, really show off your control, okay? The two eighth notes at the end, be careful not to play them too short, all right? They are staccatos, but you don't want a tutty sound. You want a nice open-ended release. Even short notes have to be released with a nice open sound. And then the last note is soft, but again, controlled with your best tone, with your best sound. Okay, so the very beginning of the video was me playing the etude in tempo. It was 60 beats a minute, okay, thereabouts, without a metronome. But this next version I'll play for you is, I'm gonna put it at 40 beats, and I'll play this again with the metronome going, so you can hear how the music fits with the metronome, and this will be your practice version. I'll try to play it as best I can, and good luck to you guys who are working on this music, and hopefully we'll get to have camp this year. All right, let's hope that happens. All right, here is the slow version of the Audition. Band director chops kicking in. Okay, one more thing I was thinking about before I turn the video off. Let's talk about this right here, okay? In the theme, at the beginning of the piece, you can leave that third vowel slide out the whole time, all right? Just less to think about, and there's no fifth position notes. Make sure that you get your D out about that far, okay? Somewhere around in there, and then C sharp, you need to push out a little bit more, okay, to get it really good and in tune. all right? But especially like in measure 14, where we land on a D, so I can, as soon as I play the E flat and I go to D, I'm gonna kick, and I'm just gonna leave it out. And it's just there, it's already set and ready to go. And I can leave it out if I want to, or after I play the D in measure 15, I can pull it back in. But have a strategy about how you're going to use your kick slide, all right? It's really important, all right? This is how we finger D. You have to use this, all right? D and C sharp. I'm going to push that a little bit further. Okay, I want to make sure I covered that. That's a very trumpet thing. All right. Best of luck, and we'll hopefully see you guys at